Breath of the Wild was an open-air adventure, so could it be that Breath of the Wild 2 will be an underground experience? Based on the reveal trailer, it looks like at least some important portions of the game will take place below the surface of Hyrule, with new modes of transportation, landmarks, items, races, enemies, Ganondorf, and possibly much, much more.
So make sure to leave a like, subscribe and hit that bell as more Zelda and Breath of the Wild 2 videos are on the way. But to understand the underground, we need to go underground inside Breath of the Wild 2.
And this time, we're not only going underground Hyrule, but actually underground in real life. More specifically to the Wieliczka salt mine outside of Kraków, Poland. This place will help us understand how the Zonai depths could function, and the great potential that caves and underground tunnels and chambers could offer for Breath of the Wild 2. To be fair, Breath of the Wild had its fair share of underground Sheikah structures plus Hyrule Castle steps, and most notably the final trial divine beast under the Shrine of Resurrection. In fact, we have an entire video dedicated to the many underground locations of Breath of the Wild. So click on it here if you want to learn more about it. In this video, however, we will look closer at what the teaser and setting for Breath of the Wild 2 could mean for the gameplay and exploration of said game. Obviously, if we're heading underground to what appears to be Zonai depths, we need to get down there. But how? Are we entering it through a network of caves, stairs, or perhaps an elevator system similar to the one found for the Sheikah in Breath of the Wild? This is a key question to ask, as it could greatly impact the nature of the underground areas, which just like the Sheikah shrines and the final trial will make for separate loading areas from the surface.
In other words, a new location from that of open-air Hyrule, but at the same time different from the Dark World seen in prior Zelda titles which we were forced into through portals. Since this time we are entering a world that has been hidden beneath the ground for tens of thousands of years, and it could change everything depending on how it is structured. We see this going a number of different ways. The most ambitious one would be a singular seamless open entity underground, just like an open-air Hyrule. However, based on the reveal trailer, we know that this will not be the case, as Link and Zelda are on a linear path to Ganondorf. Which brings us to the next option, which is an elevator system to chambers like Sheikah shrines in Breath of the Wild. Nevertheless, I don't see this being the case, for a few reasons. The Zonai's strength lays in magic and strength, not wisdom, which is the Sheikah's virtue.
Instead, I believe that we're entering a network of man-built underground areas by the Zonai, as indicated in the reveal trailer. Similarly, in fact, to the progression we saw in Twilight Princess Goron Mines, which is another example of an underground area that was linear, though connected. And Goron Mines and mines in general are linear, but with branching paths where some go vertically while others go horizontally. Yes, multiple levels could be another way to go, as is the case in the Wieliczka salt mine, or any older mining facilities around the world for that matter. It all depends on how deep we are going in Breath of the Wild 2. But then again, the reveal trailer points to a vast underground area, so I doubt we will see too many levels, but who knows. Anyway, underground levels could be connected by mine carts and mine rails, similar to the ones we saw in Hyrule Castle steps. Perhaps we could even see some minecart action sections akin to Skyward Sword or Donkey Kong Country, only on the ground. That or even underwater canals or lakes as also seen in the reveal trailer. On top of that, perhaps we could see an elevator system for a number of different shafts to different areas of Hyrule. This would in particular make sense if we are not able to progress to the next section of the underground system. But it also depends on how technologically advanced the Zonai were. Otherwise, get ready for some good old backtracking.
Exploring this, illuminated by luminous stones, and Link and Zelda's torches system of Zonai-made paths and bridges will no doubt mark a completely contrasting experience to that found on the surface in Breath of the Wild. An experience that is familiar, though, as it could be similar to the one seen in past linear 3D games, with its corridor design and layout. For better or worse, traditional 3D Zelda might finally work hand in hand with open-air Zelda in glorious HD. Now then, for the remaining half of this video, let's go into what an underground like this could have, beginning with something that apparently has already been confirmed, namely Zonai dungeons and temples. If there is one complaint that was reiterated again and again, then it was Breath of the Wild lacking real full-scale dungeons. True, in a way, Hyrule was the greatest dungeon in the series' history, but at the same time, if there was one change that was for the worse, then it was the turn from traditional dungeons into divine beasts.
Personally, I hope the Zonai temples in Breath of the Wild 2 will be similar to the concept art we saw for Zelda 1, 2, and A Link to the Past. Finally, having these ancient temples with booby traps and puzzles in full HD would be a dream come true. Based on the shadow in the reveal trailer of the dungeon entrance, it looks like these could be placed on the ground, which makes sense as this appears to be the domain of the Zonai. But temples, bosses, or divine beasts are only the end target. Prior to them, there are usually environmental hazards that need to be dealt with while crossing new areas. In Breath of the Wild, these were connected to the weather and chemistry used by enemies, such as freezing in Hebra, melting in Gerudo, burning in Eldin, and being electrocuted by both water and shock arrows in Lanayru. All of these hazards had to be traversed on the way to the 4 divine beasts. Breath of the Wild 2 will most likely be no different, but will at the same time be a completely different beast to the surface. Instead of offering environmental weather-based hazards, this time we will see water, ground, and perhaps even smoke and gas hazards. Or more specifically, dangers of underground flooding, landslides, surface collapses, poisoning, fires, and explosions connected to gas. One of these, collapsing grounds, were teased in the reveal trailer, but there are also other challenges and hazards that await us deep underground.
Namely hydration and nutrition. In the reveal we can see Zelda and their trekking animal drinking from a clean underground water source, and that Link and Zelda, on top of a number of necessary items, have also brought food supplies as hunting underground is limited. All of these scenes are hints to what we can expect of challenges and hazards in the game. Then you have the matter of enemies, which should fit the underground just as what was the case in Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Twilight Princess, and Skyward Sword, only much darker. Series producer Eiji Aonuma has previously stated that Breath of the Wild 2 will be the darkest entry in the series, even more so than Majora's Mask, which, well, had this. How do you even surpass this? By having a darker plot and enemies than the Ikana warriors, the Gibdos, Redeads, Floor, and Wall Masters, and so on. Mummy Ganondorf is a good beginning, and probably a tease of how twisted, sinister, terrifying, and dark new and returning enemies in underground Hyrule will be. So, we have made our way far into the Zonai depth, crossed decayed bridges, and conquered all hazards and enemies thrown at us. What's next? The dungeon? No, as we all know, first we need to reach the settlement and then can be set on the right path to the temple. This has been the case in every 3D Zelda, and let me just tell you that this location, or locations, might outmatch the beauty of Breath of the Wild Zora's domain.
You see, what has been presented so far from the Zonai have been decayed though very impressive ruins from well over 20,000 years ago. Underground, however, there could be entire shrines, monuments, and cities carved and built into the rocks. It might be hard to envision, so as I stated in the beginning, I went 300 feet underground to witness probably the best example of an underground city in Europe. And the crown jewel of this world of salt statues, chapels, canals, and some incredible structures is the Chapel of St Kinga. This location, more than any other in the world, to me symbolizes the great potential Hyrule's depths holds, with wall carvings of historic and biblical events, statues, and splendid illumination, all hand-carved in rock salt, similar to the Zonai carvings we see in Breath of the Wild 2's reveal trailer. The Zonai were no doubt the master carvers and masons based on what they left behind in Breath of the Wild and now in Breath of the Wild 2, and I expect big things from them underground, and the city could be an amazing replacement of the Hyrule Castle town we never got to experience in Breath of the Wild, full with squares, streets, houses, chapels, shrines, and monuments that will make any prior settlement in the Zelda series pale in comparison. Sequels are all about outdoing the original, just like Majora's Mask did with Clocktown, the Deku Palace, Snowhead, Great Bay, and Ikana. Everything needs to be grander and more spectacular.
This goes specifically for the mysterious Zonai race, who, as we all know, were really special, with their great arts, courage in battle, and powerful magic. If anything is left out of this tribe, besides possibly some washed out descendants in Lurelin, then we need to see them, as Breath of the Wild introduced no new races on top of the established ones. The sequel has the opportunity to change this, and who knows, perhaps we could see more races than just Zonai if they are even alive underground. If they all sacrifice themselves to keep Ganondorf sealed, then perhaps we can see some other dwellers in this underworld, like perhaps mining dwarf or minish-like tribes. This way the Zelda team could bring back the scrapped minish town and instead make it an underground town, and who knows, perhaps even a Goron or two might join us down for some thrilling minecart action. The potential was endless, from minecart chases and minigames, underground cities, the most terrifying enemies in the series, and a brand new way to explore and discover that was not present in Breath of the Wild 2.
If you want to see more videos like this one, then make sure to leave a like and subscribe, plus press that notification bell for all notifications and not miss any of our upcoming Zelda and Nintendo productions. We would also greatly appreciate if you consider supporting us on patreon.com/commonrealm, as we need more financial backing to keep the show running. Now that we are heading for 250,000 subscribers, big things will happen when we reach them, so make sure to subscribe. Anyway, we will see you in the next one.